Um, for those of you who just joined, this is a kind of a new format that we're trying out for our collaboration calls. We're going to do like more of a collaboration summit about every quarter. So this is our spring collaboration summit. We have a special topic that we're going to discuss today: mindfulness, medicine, and leadership, and how you can integrate it into your coaching. We will have another collaboration summit, very same format, sometime in July, the date to be determined yet. And then in September, in lieu of a collaboration summit, as you all know, most of you know, we have our 1 day on-site Physician Coaching Institute Enrichment Day, which is Sunday, September 27th. So it's going to be a full day of learning from each other, coaching practice, coaching enrichment. It's the Sunday after the Institute of Coaching conference. So that's the plan. So let's now turn our attention to Dr. Jackie Huntley, who you should all see on your video, and she's going to be sharing her screen as well. She has a PowerPoint presentation. You know, we were talking. We are actually having a planning meeting. This was the advisory board about a month, or maybe about six to 8 weeks ago, talking about what are people doing. And Jackie happened to mention that she was leading workshops in mindfulness for physician leaders, and I roped her in to provide this presentation today because I thought, first of all, mindfulness is a very, very hot topic in healthcare, and mindfulness in leadership, mindfulness in coaching, they all kind of there's a confluence right now. So, Jackie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then enlighten us?
Okay, Francie, I just want to ask, can you see my screen now?
We sure do. Yes.
Okay, great.
Everybody?
Okay. Well, this is a great privilege, and it was really when we had this conversation a couple of months ago, and I was telling Francine about this, and she said, "Oh, well, why don't you do this?" I sort of thought, yes, I have to do this. So I was really delighted to have the opportunity to present to the other coaches, because it's really in some ways a different audience that I've presented mindfulness to. Just a little bit about me is quite frankly, I'm a physician, but came into mindfulness many, many years ago. I was running a women's wellness center, and at that time I had a kind of perfect storm going on. I noticed with my patients that they were very much a population of what I would call the worried well. And when I looked into my arsenal of what I could use for them to help them manage stress and feel better and coping with life, many of them who I didn't feel needed to see a therapist, I found that I seemed to come up lacking of tools that I could present to them. At the same time, that I had 3 children and was becoming aware of that my parenting skills might need a little improvement as well. And I also was finding that juggling the various roles was putting a fair amount of stress on my own self. So I had this kind of perfect storm that came together, and that put me on a bit of a mission to explore other avenues for managing stress in many different ways and for living my life in a more fulfilling way. I first of all came across Dr. Herbert Benson's program in Boston. I'm sure many of you know, he is the kind of author of the relaxation response and did a tremendous amount of work in identifying this innate response that we have to counteract stress. At the same time, I also came across Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was at UMass, and he had started his program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. I attended both of them. They had week-long trainings for physicians, but I was particularly drawn to Jon Kabat-Zinn's program. And actually, since that time, went to his week-long training. I wasn't able to fully attend the 8-week program that he runs, but I did the 8-week program from his book, Full Catastrophe Living, at home and with his CDs. So since that time, I established my own mindfulness practice and also received training in yoga to get a better understanding of that. So I would say for me that when I've had different aspects to my career, but I'm getting feedback here. I would say that I actually mindfulness drew me to coaching. So that's kind of how it worked for me. I found many of the things that I experienced in mindfulness, the tenets of mindfulness, caused me to then look, well, how could I bring this into a bigger sphere other than just with patient care, but also in interacting with my colleagues and other people. So that's really my route to from mindfulness to coaching. So what I'm going to do today is really just go over a little bit of how mindfulness connects to leadership, how it connects to physician well-being, and specifically how we as coaches and our clients can use mindfulness. I know many of you have great experience in leadership, so some of what I've put up coming up may not be new, but just to go over that. This is a statement from Ben Berhard, who is a pediatrician, was chairman of pediatrics and executive VP at Metro Health in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, currently now with CJ Executive Search. And he defines the kind of people that we want as physician leaders. They must be visionary, relational, collaborative, persuasive, and emotionally intelligent. And we're all familiar with the importance that emotional intelligence has gained in leadership. This can be seen from many studies. This is a particular study from Taylor et al., where they explored the competencies that came up when they interviewed both established and aspiring physician leaders, and emotional intelligence was certainly one of the core competencies. In addition, the Healthcare Leadership Alliance, when they were developing their 300 competencies, they defined emotional intelligence not specifically with the word emotional intelligence, but breaking it down into working with others, managing oneself, integrity, engendering trust, amongst other things. Labos et al., they did an interview with, they took 10 physicians in internal medicine who were all chairmen of departments. And here again, emotional intelligence was a critical factor, and they defined this ability as being fundamental to their success and its absence as being the cause of their failures. So this was pretty succinct. You all may be, I'm sure, aware of the 5 categories of emotional intelligence as defined by Daniel Goleman, just to remind everybody of this. This includes self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. A paper by Stoller et al., and this was about developing physician leaders and what key competencies were important and what was actually being used in physician leadership programs. And here again, emotional intelligence was a critical component of what was being incorporated into physician leadership programs. So for the sake of discussion on how emotional intelligence and mindfulness are interlinked, I've chosen a program that's UNC's Leadership Development Institute, and they have a specific model of emotional intelligence for physician leaders. This is the pyramid they use. As you can see, the 2 particular areas of competency are personal competence, broken down into 4 particular main areas, and that leads to social competence. And they see this as a kind of stack system where you need all of these things in order to move to the very top, which is relationship management. So I'm going to use this pyramid just to draw up a discussion of how emotional competence, intelligence, and mindfulness are connected. Just as there's been an explosion of research into the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership, both for in the business world and in the physician world, the research in mindfulness has exploded in the last 13 years, particularly in the last 10 years. So there is a lot of data coming out to support the importance of mindfulness in many different spheres, educational, the military, leadership, and in medicine itself. So the way I see mindfulness and emotional intelligence, they're really 2 skill sets that are on the same path. They really don't compete with each other, and this has been my experience. They mutually support each other. So what I've done with this, these are just slides that I've just drawn up to just give an example of how you might connect emotional intelligence and mindfulness. So if we look at the competency of self-perception from that pyramid, and you look on the left, these are some of the attributes that have been found to be developed when people practice mindfulness. Self-awareness particularly, compassion for self and others, clarity of purpose, and the ability to see the big picture. As you can see, all this could easily tie into the development of self-perception. Here again, when you look at that competency of self-expression, and on the left you have mindfulness, other things that come out of mindfulness training and experience and practice, you get better emotional regulation, enhanced and more effective communication, and an increase in sense of self-direction and self-control. And you can see how this could connect to self-expression. Here again, stress management, which is seen as essential for emotional intelligence and physician leadership. Mindfulness has been shown to reduce stress and reduce negative emotions, to increase positive emotions and enhance optimism, to enhance curiosity and creativity, and also to enhance resilience, all of which can tie into stress management. And here again, in regards to decision making, the fourth competency in that personal competence, mindfulness has been shown to reduce distractibility, increase focus and attention, increase working memory, enhance being in the moment, enhance listening skills, and enhance problem solving, all of which would be critical for increased decision making. And in terms of social awareness and relationship management, mindfulness has been shown to enhance empathy and compassion for self and others. Here again, enhance communication, create better relationships, and enhance the ability to see the big picture. So the potential interlink between mindfulness and emotional intelligence is fairly apparent. Some of you may be aware of Google's program, which is called Search Inside Yourself. And this is really a pivotal program which connects mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and leadership. And they have incorporated mindfulness completely into their program as a necessary requirement for achieving emotional intelligence and optimal leadership.
What is their program exactly, Jackie?
It's called Search Inside Yourself, and it's a 6 to 8 week program, and they actually have different spin-off modules for their employees. And it started in Google with Chad Meng Tan, who I think is number 117 in Google. So he's an engineer who was in on the ground floor in Google, but a longtime practitioner of mindfulness. And he's actually now known as the Jolly Good Fellow in Google. So he started this program. Daniel Goleman was very involved in the development of it, as was John Kabat-Zinn. So they run this for their employees. But they have spun off an institute where they are actually offering now this program now to people outside of Google. And they're also training people in their program. I went to a 2-day, one of their actual 2-day leadership programs where they, just to see what they were doing. And so it's a 2-day workshop that you can go to for people in leadership positions who would like to learn some of the skills from Search Inside Yourself.
Good.
So
thanks.
I'll say it was well worth going. It's pretty intense, but what was very interesting was how just learning some mindfulness techniques and doing this in a group, how eye-opening it was for many of the people there, and they actually found immediate application that day. Some of them, they said they were going to be on phone calls that they were ready to blow the person up at the other end, and they found a different way to do it. So it was very valuable. So the next piece was just to reiterate the importance of mindfulness and physician well-being and performance. And here again, there's a lot of research that's is starting to come out on this. And the things that particularly have been noted is that through mindfulness, it increases physician self-awareness and other healthcare professionals. And this leads to better management of stress, the potential for decreased burnout, and increased empathy. Another study found that it increased their sense of self-efficacy, their sense of well-being and coping skills, and they, most importantly, obviously it's very important in terms of physician well-being and burnout, but the final outcome is it actually leads to a better quality of care. It's also been found to reduce physician errors, and that this training in self-awareness leads to better physician-patient communication, and here again, ultimately, a higher quality of care. So there is data starting to come out that teaching these skills is beneficial for physicians' own well-being, but ultimately it translates into better performance and potentially for better patient care. So the last piece is what I'm doing really with my business, my coaching business. And I started connecting mindfulness to my coaching because I found that there were many clients, the clients that were coming to me, and I found that I felt there was a gap sometimes in when we even started our coaching or as we went along in how the clients were preparing themselves prior to the coaching and even how they were present during the coaching. And I just felt that mindfulness had the potential to enhance all the other things that we do in coaching. And so I started to raise this with some of the physicians. Some physicians weren't aware of it, weren't particularly receptive, but there were physicians I were finding who were really curious about it. They'd heard about it. They'd heard about it particularly in relation through Jon Kabat-Zinn's program and how it translated to treating patients in stress reduction, but they weren't as aware about how they might apply it to themselves. I don't know what everybody's experience is with mindfulness, and you may have your own definition if you are experienced with it, but this is the definition from Jon Kabat-Zinn. He defines mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. And the thing to notice is that all those words are very important. There's no redundancy in the words, and they have particular meaning. When you go through Jon Kabat-Zinn's program, and this is his mindfulness-based stress reduction program, but this program has, as I said, has been taken, it's not only used with patients now, it's been used in many settings. But he does recommend that there are 3 particular things that need to happen in order to have success at going forward with mindfulness. Originally, he didn't have intent as part of mindfulness, because in our society, intent can become about goal seeking, and that can really destroy the powerfulness of mindfulness, which is about being in the moment. But he realized in a westernized society that we are used to that kind of sense of a direction, that we need to know where we're going, why we're going in that direction. So he added intent into this. But what he does say is when you practice mindfulness is set your intent and then let it go, so that you are not only focused on that outcome, that you allow yourself to be you experience mindfulness. The second piece is to really develop a mindfulness practice is to actually commit to doing it. And that obviously doesn't just apply to mindfulness, it probably applies to everything. And the third piece was the practice. And this is the piece that is very important. This is not something that you just go and you do a mindfulness course or you just read about it. It actually has to be something that becomes part of your life. There's really 2 ways that it can be incorporated is in a formal practice, such as mindfulness meditation, where there's a formal time that you have set aside in order to practice some of the mindfulness strategies, or informally, where you incorporate it into your daily life and try and bring a different awareness into your daily life. he also mentions, and I'm using John Kabat-Zinn as my model just because this is what I'm most familiar with, but this really is a model that translates through virtually all mindfulness models. Is there 6 attitudes that in order to really move forward with mindfulness, he said, are very important. They're really the foundation of mindfulness. And they're non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go. And I can tell you, when I first started learning about this and practicing this, some of this was quite challenging, continues to be challenging, because in some ways it really, if you look at some of these things, they look like the antithesis of really what we've often been trained to do in our working lives and even our personal lives. So just a little bit about non-judgments. Non-judgment is really just bringing, allowing yourself to be an impartial witness to your own experience. Just stepping back from what you're experiencing and allowing yourself to see it almost as an observer without judgment. What this really does is allow us, by not immediately defaulting to an automatic judgment of a situation or a thought, or allow ourselves to kind of get ourselves out of that automatic default, where we might say our minds are used to certain patterns of thinking, and it's very easy to fall into an old pattern. But if you can develop this impartial witness to it, you allow yourself to really see what's going on and make a different choice. Patience, I've used this picture of a butterfly. This is the analogy he uses, where patience is something that's not always easy. We want to fast forward things, but if you imagine a butterfly in a cocoon, if we try and open that cocoon before the butterfly is ready, we will obviously kill the butterfly. So this attitude of patience, just allowing things to unfold in their own time, knowing that that is the way it has to happen. Beginner's mind, some of you may be familiar with this quote. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious how well this connects to coaching, is that, you know, allowing one to be curious and open to what might unfold in the coaching experience is kind of essential to coaching, and certainly essential to mindfulness. Trust is another thing which we obviously bring into coaching, and particularly in mindfulness, is you need to be able to trust your own experience and what you're actually feeling at that time. And to a certain extent, it's trusting your own feelings, not defaulting to what other people are saying. It also supports that non-judgment, and just saying that I'll trust where I am at this time, and just allows yourself to just be more fully yourself. So trust, all these things you all may be seeing are not necessarily easy things to do, but they definitely underpin a lot of our thoughts, in that we may not trust ourselves, or we may feel there's an expert elsewhere, or that we really aren't good enough at what we're doing, but just trusting that we are for this moment in time. Non-striving, I know I struggled with this one. It's really about paying attention, being aware of the outcome that we want, but not forcing ourselves to get there, and forcing ourselves to ram through things in order to achieve the outcome. I wrestled with this. I thought, well, what does this really mean? I mean, does this mean one doesn't persist with things? But here again, I think it ties into that idea of just knowing that one is doing exactly what you need to do at the time to move things forward, and knowing that just by keeping going on that path, that you will reach the outcome. But by forcing through it, you may not reach the outcome, because you lose sight of what's really going on at this time. This is really about, it's almost like, I'll call it optimistic realism, but maybe optimistic shouldn't be in there. It's about being realistic about what's in the moment right now, and actually not putting a judgment on it. It is what it is. I think this is an extremely powerful uh, a powerful attitude, because it really is the one place when you see things as they are and you allow yourself not to judge it, seeing it as positive or negative, you just allow it to be what it is. And that really is a place of really important, the ability to really choose what you do next, because you're really seeing at that moment the truth. And letting go, this is the idea of non-attachment and not being totally attached to certain ideas. I used to have a writing teacher, and when I would write, there'd be a word that she would say, well, that word doesn't make sense there, and I would be so attached to that word. And she said, you got to let that go. It doesn't work right here. And so it's kind of like some of the thoughts we might have at different times that really aren't working for us, but we're very attached to them. And it's about letting them go at that time because they're not serving us well. He describes in his book, Full Catastrophe Living, that in India there's a way of catching monkeys, that you hammer a banana to a tree and then put a coconut with a hole over it, and the monkey will put his paw through the hole in the coconut and grab the banana and will never let the banana go. And that's how they catch the monkeys. So to a certain extent, maybe that's how we catch ourselves. There's a lot of research coming out on mindfulness and neuroplasticity. And this underpinning of neuroscience is really also supporting the integration of mindfulness into different spheres. Richard Davidson has done a tremendous amount of research in this, and he's also been part of the Google program. And so just the idea that by practicing mindfulness, we actually change our brains in different ways. And so it's really, for some people, the words are very important. Some practitioners of mindfulness will not use mindfulness. They will use the word brain training or brain awareness or different words because the semantics can be important. But there is definite evidence that that you can strengthen those neurological circuits that calm different parts of the brain, increasing the brain gray matter to enhance learning and memory, emotional regulation, and all these different things. Increase those areas associated with positive emotions, and also change control of the autonomic nervous system and those areas associated with attention. I think the importance about these changes is that this is where the practice comes in. Because for many people it can be daunting to think, oh gosh, every day is a new day and I've got to reinvent the wheel every day with mindfulness or practice or whatever. Yes, the practice does have to be regular. But on the other hand, through regular practice, we actually are able to change how we respond to different situations. And so that enables us, even without thinking, that our default thinking changes, and so that we respond to situations differently, and we're not reacting to them on automatic mode. So it's really a way of giving us great choice in how we act in different situations. So when you look at mindfulness in relation to coaching, it impacts the coach, it can impact the client, and ultimately it can impact their relationship. For me as a coach with the personal practice, it has impacted me on a personal level, and it will impact most coaches on a personal level. And then it can impact coaches on a professional level. But in addition to that, it can actually optimize the coaching experience to make it an optimal experience for the coach. And particularly how this works is through the idea of presence, that it can really enhance this concept of presence. Presence might be seen by many of you as really the essence of coaching, and you may have your own definition of it. I'll just give you a couple here. The International Coach Federation defines it as the ability to be fully conscious and create a spontaneous relationship with the client, employing a style which is open, flexible, and confident. Doug Silsby, in his book, Presence-Based Coaching, he defines it as a state of awareness in the moment, characterized by the felt experience of timeliness, connectedness, and larger truth. And as you can see, really a lot of the words that I've used here are very connected, are similar, are exactly the same, or very similar to what we might see that are some of the outcomes that come through the practice of mindfulness. Doug Silsby, again, in his book, The Mindful Coach, he feels very strongly, and he sees mindfulness as a route to presence. And I've used the same slide because, in a way, at the beginning of the talk, I was talking about how mindfulness and emotional intelligence share the same path as well. So Liz Hall is a journalist and a coach, and she's written a book called Mindful Coaching, and I really would highly recommend this book. It's really an excellent overview of bringing mindfulness. She had her own mindfulness practice initially, and then she herself also moved into coaching. And she describes that when she's present as a coach, and these are how she describes presence, as listening, being open to possibility, being available to the client, being able to exude warmth, but also being able to be vulnerable, not being attached to outcomes, being non-judgmental, being able to be connected and interconnected, staying with uncertainty, dancing in the moment, and being in a very approachable state. And if you look at the attitudes of mindfulness that we discussed, you can see how very closely the cultivation of mindfulness could enhance the ability for a coach to be present in the coach-client interaction. For the client here, again, mindfulness really has many applications just on a personal level in their personal life and their professional life, and also to here again allow them to come to the coaching, be present with the coaching and after the coaching, and optimize their participation in it and the effectiveness of the coaching. Just some ways that if you were to recommend mindfulness, I've used the word emotional intelligence. There's some redundancy when you look at the things below, but I think a very effective way of framing it for your client is that you can frame it in a way that it is a way to address their issues. If they've come to you saying, my life is chaotic or whatever, you can also frame it in a way that mindfulness will enhance their ability to deal with chaos and change, will enhance their ability to accept things as they are and possibly and be able to move on and to make different choices, particularly to be self-accepting and self-compassionate. Self-awareness, so they have an awareness of some, and we're all familiar in coaching how when our clients do become aware of certain patterns of behavior or thought patterns, and mindfulness is just another way to enhance those aha moments that our clients have. So, and these are just some other ways to how it might be framed to your clients in an effective way. So if it comes down to how you might consider using mindfulness, I think a lot of that depends on where you are right now and where you would like to go with mindfulness. Obviously, the first place to start is to get some knowledge about it. I've recommended some books at the end of this, which I think are great resources for mindfulness. So just that essential knowledge of gaining more information about mindfulness and learning about it, and from some of the experts in the field. And I particularly put books that are related to leadership and to leadership. The next piece, it's rather like, I think there's a difference here if you're going to recommend mindfulness, even if you're just going to recommend it, but obviously if you really are going to teach it to your clients, it does really make a difference to have some personal experience of it. I think it's well worth at least trying, experiencing mindfulness, attempting some of the strategies, seeing how it resonates with you, even if you feel like, well, it's not something you personally want to embrace, but would like to recommend to your client, you at least have the wisdom of knowing what the challenges are. But I think it can be quite hard to recommend mindfulness in the abstract. So personal experience is very important. And then obviously the final piece would be to actually get specific training and go to mindfulness courses or retreats, or get into some meditation groups and get some training in mindfulness meditation. So how am I planning, and how have I been using this in my own business? What I'm currently working on is really developing a mindfulness program, a mindfulness and medicine program for physicians. I'm calling it Thrive to Lead MD. And I think it's important to have an idea, if you do want to develop your own program, or if you're going to recommend it, is what are the key things that you think how mindfulness will tie in with your coaching and will benefit your client. And this is obviously a fairly comprehensive list, but this is particularly what my particular themes are, then where I see its value in coaching. Some of the practices that I'm using are just breathing practices. This is probably the most accessible practice. I think even if this was where the total experience of mindfulness, I think breathing can be a very valuable tool, just learning some simple breathing techniques. Sitting meditation is obviously a more formal, and this is sitting mindfulness meditation. I'm not going to really go into the different types of meditation, but this is bringing mindful awareness to your sitting meditation. Body scanning is a tool, a very useful tool for allowing people to do scan their bodies and see where they're holding tension, where they're holding discomfort, and so it's a very useful tool for allowing your clients, your physicians and other healthcare professionals to identify where they may be holding some of their even roadblocks for moving forward in coaching. And the other two I've mentioned are walking meditation and yoga. And both of these can be, yoga you can actually even do as a sitting yoga. And so there are really two ways to use these. You could, if you feel comfortable, you could recommend these to your client to actually, you can recommend some sites and places to go to get more mindfulness training, but I wouldn't recommend them going somewhere if you're at least not familiar with the program. Or if you're comfortable, you could teach some of these tools to your client at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of your coaching interaction. In addition to what I recommend, as I develop this program out, the more formal recommendation, the initial part is to have some kind of formal mindfulness time that they set aside for themselves, even if it's 5 minutes at the beginning of the day or 10 minutes at the beginning of the day. But in addition, what they can incorporate is what they might call a mindful moment during the day, where you might recommend to your client to say, well, maybe at midday, just take out a moment to focus on your breathing or tune into your body, see where your emotions are, your feelings are, and just tune into their body at different points in the day. It might be strategic, related to a meeting or meeting a client or something like that, but just to add mindful moments during the day. And finally, because this is really a self-awareness exercise, I think it's also important to suggest to people that they write down the experience of mindfulness for themselves, and how it's impacting their life. Obviously, some of us as coaches may also recommend journaling anyway. So this is just another piece to possibly tie into their journals. You also can, if you're interested, you could also give specific reflections that you feel would be valuable for them to do at the end of a mindfulness meditation or mindfulness moment. The resources I'm mentioning here are mainly books. Jon Kabat-Zinn's first book was called Full Catastrophe Living. Mindful Coaching is Liz Hall's book that I just recommended. Search Inside Yourself from the Google program. Finding the Space to Lead is from Janice Maturano. She's developed the Institute for Mindful Leadership, and she went through Jon Kabat-Zinn's program with Saki Santorelli, and has worked very closely with them to develop mindfulness-based stress reduction in leadership. And another leadership book is Mindful Leadership with Maria Gonzalez. And just to quickly finish up, I recently went to a blues concert, and there were two blues singers, and I thought these two phrases came out from these two blues singers. One was, "I'm going to spend me some time to get me some peace of mind, and it can take time to find your right mind." Doug McLeod. So thank you very much. Appreciate having had the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Don't go, anybody. Don't go away. Wow. Let's first open it up to questions, and then Jackie, I was thinking, if I wonder if you could even maybe lead us through a 2 minute, 3 minute mindfulness, uh, a
Yeah.
mindfulness capsule. Well,
Sure, sure. Would you like to do that before questions or after?
you know what? Why don't we do it before, if I could be so bold to suggest that while we're on the topic of mindfulness. Um, Hold on a second. And Jackie, you can probably stop sharing your screen now, just so we don't inadvertently see something that you don't want us to see.
Okay, let's see.
I think it shows you see a it should under.
Okay, stop showing screen. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, do you want to walk us through a mindfulness something?
Sure.
Give us a
Okay.
taste.
All right.
Go ahead.
So just take a moment to just feel yourself sitting in your chair, wherever you are right now. Just feel your feet on the ground, your body sitting in your chair, your back supported, your shoulders, your arms. Just take a moment to feel yourself completely supported by the chair. And if you're comfortable, just gently close your eyes. Nowhere to be except right here, this moment, sitting comfortably and supported in your room. And just gently bring your awareness to your breath, the inhalation, the exhalation. Just let your breath gently flow in through your nostrils and then gently exhale. Just gently bring your awareness to your breathing. Just letting your breath infuse your whole body, inhaling, letting it flow down your arms, flow into your chest, into your abdomen, flowing to your feet. And as you exhale, completely letting your body relax. Your feet, your legs, your chest, your back, your neck, your eyes, and your face. Inhaling and exhaling. And if any thoughts come into your head, just acknowledge those thoughts. Acknowledge that they've come into your mind, and then gently let them go and bring your awareness back to your breathing. Inhaling, exhaling. Just allowing yourself to experience this moment of complete relaxation, complete awareness, nowhere to be but right here. Just giving yourself this little pause, this moment in your busy day, to just reconnect with yourself, your mind, Just allowing your whole self to breathe and be relaxed. And when you're ready, just bring your awareness again to your breathing and gently open your eyes.
Thank you.
I don't know. So that's just a very simple thing, and really you can customize it for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that's just really what you might call a mindful moment, and obviously there can be many ways and many phrases that you use, but it's really just taking that moment to pause and just focus on your breath, focus on how your body's feeling, let your mind relax, and particularly allowing that idea of any thoughts that come into your mind, just acknowledge them and let them go, knowing that there's nowhere to be right now except right here in the moment.
That was very nice. That was the presentation was excellent, and I appreciated your willingness on the spot to walk us through a mindful moment. I think that was it was reinforced everything that you've said, and I was thinking need a mindful moment right now. Let's open it up to questions. And I know that some of you are on mute. I don't know if you've self-muted or if I've muted you, but what questions do we have for Jackie about this topic? And if anybody is muted and you want to be unmuted, just let me know. I think I'm unmuting everyone. While we're waiting, Jackie, I did have a question. I think it was like your third to the last slide. You had a list of I guess I saw them as benefits.
Resources?
It was about your third to the last slide. I think it was I'm looking at your slides here, about um, number 42.
Okay.
Number 42. And you're talking about how, I'm sorry, it was number 39.
Okay.
I'm curious if it sounds like you're weaving your sense of mindfulness and mindful coaching into your coaching, or are you when you are is your coaching program specifically geared towards helping your physicians and your clients become more mindful? Do you see what I'm asking? I mean, I know one can do both, but I'm curious how you're using this.
Well, I think it's really I see it. I think it came out of initially that really enabling physicians to be more mindful.
Hmm.
However, I realized that the mindfulness for me is actually woven into the coaching interaction, and so I would like to start weaving probably mindfulness tools into the coaching experience. I hope I'm answering your question here, but I do think it is really dependent on the client.
Uh-huh.
And I think, being familiar with mindfulness, having enough, if one gains enough personal experience, I think it becomes obvious almost when it might be useful and beneficial to bring mindfulness actually into the coach-client interaction. So I think it's not always something that has to be brought in, but I think there are moments when it really could, just bringing in a short breathing exercise, or a short breathing exercise, for example, would certainly enhance the coaching experience.
Okay. And
Did that answer your question?
yeah, so I'm showing my screen now, which was your slide that I was referring to. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Right.
Um, Because I was thinking that, hold on, I gotta let my little dog out of the room. I was thinking that all of these examples are exactly what a coaching client would want to get out of coaching. And then I was also thinking that, wow, developing a mindfulness and leadership coaching kind of whether it's a workshop or just a teleseries would be really
Right.
kind of a cool thing for any of our coaches to do if they wanted to focus strictly on mindful helping a physician leader become more mindful. So it could go either
Yeah, I
way.
mean, what I'm working on, particularly as an independent program, is to actually help physician leaders become more mindful,
Uh-huh.
with with the idea that the many benefits of that. So it's more of a formal program to train. That particular program that I'm developing is
Yeah.
more of a formal program to help physicians become more, or other healthcare professionals become more mindful, but with the idea that ties into all the things we've talked about: emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
to physician well-being, to healthcare professional well-being. But I think also, as regards the coach-client interaction,
Mhm.
I think it has the potential to possibly fast forward the client, as I mentioned, to certain aha moments. I
Mhm.
think mindfulness can really enhance coaching that way. That things that
Yeah.
it has the potential, just like we talked about the neuroplasticity, that it actually almost has the potential to change the receptivity of that client to the coaching itself
Yeah.
through the mindfulness.
Yeah. 'Cause
But
if you look at your list here of just live more in the moment, finding meaning and purpose, be more aligned with values. So much of a coaching program will
yeah,
do that, which is great. I can see how your attraction to coaching came from mindfulness.
right. And I think they really aren't mutually exclusive. I mean, we've got two words here, mindfulness and coaching, and mindfulness and emoji. We got a lot of words going around,
Yeah,
and yet there's a certain redundancy in many ways
yeah,
in these separations.
yeah. Good. Uh, what questions do we have from our attendees, from our coaches? And again, if you think you're muted and want to ask a question, at least tell me via the chat box if you are unable to speak. Let me see. Hold on a second. Do I still have everybody?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm curious. Maybe I can ask the group. Who here is doing something with mindfulness, specifically with mindfulness, either with the client, healthcare client? Are your clients engaged in mindfulness? Anybody want to add to the knowledge base here? Or is this all new for everyone? Don't be shy. It's getting a lot of press. At least I maybe because I'm aware. I'm mindful of the mindfulness press going out. A lot more people thinking about this. In some organizations, it's becoming a thing, but for a lot of organizations, it's a brand new, brand new. Well, I am
Yeah,
mindful of the time. Was there a question or comment? I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you.
yeah. Actually, this is Paul. To
Yeah.
answer your question, I have had quite a bit of training in mindfulness in both my coach training in my ICF program and then in my follow-on training with Margaret Moore's Well Coaches program.
Uh huh. Oh yes. I think I'm familiar with it.
As a job, and so yeah, very actually quite familiar with a lot of what Jackie put together, and I'm just really impressed with her research. So thank you, Jackie, so much for putting this in a very digestible way. My question is how have you been able to get this out into your market to be able to brand yourself as a mindfulness coach? What different ways have you been successful in talking to different organizations and securing for yourself clients and a reputation as the go-to person in your area?
Well, let me just say right now, this is kind of a work in progress that I'm doing. So that's really what I am working on right now is, how do I get this into different spheres, for into the market. So, one of the things particularly is that this program that I'm working on called Thrive to Lead MD. So just actually having a very defined program is one way I see as being helpful for doing that. The other way is that I am on faculty in a family medicine program. So I've been starting to introduce that into the medical school side and also into the residency side, just in that sphere. But right now, this is kind of my launching moment to try and go forward with this. So you're looking at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
In terms of making this really a
Very
really
cool.
tangible product. Thank you. I did want to
No.
mention that of anybody who gets the Physician Leadership Journal, it just so happened that this came in last week and it's this month, and there is an article called Mindfulness Matters, and it's actually a physician coach who uses mindfulness. They call it a powerful resource for overstressed physician leaders. So I think I'm thinking the timing is right, that as it's moving into medicine. And one thing I will mention from that article, he actually mentions a technique that Tara Brach uses, who's a mindfulness coach, and her acronym is RAIN, and the acronym stands for recognize what is going on, allow the experience to be there, just as it is, investigate with kindness.
Mm.
So that's a kind of cool acronym, and I think what really strikes me about that is that at the last one, investigate with kindness, because I think that's often where the piece for people in healthcare that they're not used to doing, and it's often the thing that maybe a source of real issues for people in healthcare.
Right.
So I think that's really quite a powerful acronym that can be used with physician clients.
Right. Well, I think related to that is just the idea or the principle and quality of non-judgment. Non-judgment.
Yeah.
If you work just on non-judgment the rest of your life,
Exactly.
that would be amazing.
I think the other thing is I did, as I mentioned in the presentation, finding a word that resonates with you or your clients. If mindfulness isn't the word, it could be something, as I said, awareness or brain training or whatever, but I think it doesn't have to be mindfulness, because for some people that it's off-putting or whatever, but I think there are many ways to still have integrity with the practice, but use words that are maybe more approachable for your clients.
I think it's a great idea. Other comments before we adjourn here in a minute or so? Any comments or questions? Anybody else want to offer how they are thinking about mindfulness or whether they have used mindfulness? Well, why don't we go ahead and wrap up here? Jackie, thank you so much. This was right on the spot for what we were hoping. I really appreciate your giving us some background on mindfulness, a little bit of the data, and how you are contemplating how you're using mindfulness in your coaching practice and how you are thinking about developing a coaching program around mindfulness. So I'm definitely inspired, actually. I'm inspired. I can immediately think of a coaching program. Like I can't get it out of my head now, or at least a mini workshop or something. But thank you so much. We will have an audio recording at least of this. So for those of you who want to listen again, that'll be available to you. Sometime in July, we'll have our next collaboration summit. If there is a topic that you would really like us to address in July, if you could please email me and or Diane Whiting, or just email me if I don't know if Diane's on the line today. That way we can get the date and the topic going, and be on the lookout for our announcement about the PCI Enrichment Day, September 27th. All right, and there's Rob. Hey, Rob. Uh,
There.
you switched offices.
Yes.
And thank you, Rob, so much for facilitating our networking session earlier in the hour. You are going to get an email automatically from GoToWebinar after today's call, and it's a little message that says, "Hey, how does this technology work for you guys today?" So give me some feedback around the technology. I love having us on video. There is another video option that lets everybody be on video, up to 25 people. If you would prefer that, we can use that technology instead of this one. Um, all right, Rob, any parting words before we adjourn?
No, but it would be helpful for people to know whether they prefer this or something like Zoom, because you said that your free trial runs out tomorrow, right?
This one runs out tomorrow.
Right,
I
right.
do like the
So,
registration option with GoToWebinar though, and the reminders. I did like that.
right. So the possibility, as I was talking with Deborah yesterday, is that perhaps I don't know what it costs per month, but if there are other people that are in other PCI group members that are interested in having this service available to them, maybe they could rent it from you, for a fee that would help to cost share what it would cost you to keep the service.
Yeah. Well, I like that idea. The thing about GoToWebinar, the one drawback, as I mentioned, is there's only 6 people who can be on video, and which is kind of, I don't know, it's unfortunate. Whereas Zoom, you can have more. I like the quality of the video here better, but anyway. But yeah, give me. So we'll use one or the other in July. We'll have the same. We're going to have another telewebinar like this. Um, we'll continue to experiment. I think it'll take us a couple of rounds before we get a feel for the technology and everyone can weigh in on what works.
Is there anything specifically that you'd like to hear from today's attendees that would help you decide which one to get?
The ease of getting on, and also were the reminders, was the registration process, was this easier than previous PCI collaboration call registrations?
So
Um,
I want to give them a specific call to action that will help you. So you want to know if the registration was easier.
if the registration was easier, did you like the reminder system, getting reminders? And overall, did you like
The reminders that came.
and did you like being able to see the PowerPoint and the presenter live
Okay.
versus just being on a telephone?
Okay. So we'll try to get people to answer those 3 questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. I guess we'll adjourn. I hate to say goodbye. It's been so nice to see everybody. But we shall say goodbye. And until I see you in July, have a wonderful next couple of months. And be on the lookout for a link to a survey. We're going to get your input on the PCI Enrichment Day. So please complete that survey. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Jackie. Great job.
Now I got to figure out how to